Oops, I forgot I turned my headset off. Well, fuck it, we're doing it live, so fuck later. Let's just do it right now. I can't sleep and it's past 2 a.m., so fuck everything. Here we go. Thoughts on Arkham Knight. I am Thomas Fyrehart, to those who are new to this. Arkham Knight. Pretty much like the title sums up whether you're going to go with it. Is it Arkham Knight or is it a Blight? And you know what? There are some issues that I have with this game, but overall, the short version, I'm satisfied. Uh, let's just get to the main issue and the elephant in the room. The Arkham Knight is Jason Todd. Spoilers. I mean, of course it's going to be fucking spoilers. What the hell were you thinking? This is a fucking. Should I have put a spoiler warning on there? Yes, but I mean, Jesus Christ. Apparently, everyone and their mother knew this was going to be Jason Todd. I had no idea that that conversation was happening. So, and you know, I didn't watch the Ace Chemical stuff that they posted. So I never really bothered to look into that sort of shit. So it was only when I started playing the game that it is kind of sad though, because it's like the first time he shows up, I'm like, yeah, that's Jason Todd. It has to be. There's like literally no one else it can be. And I was right. So I was someone who went in not knowing that it was pretty much established that it's Jason Todd already. And they flat out denied that. And, you know, that's covering their asses. I mean, they would have had to have delayed the game again and changed Jason out with someone else. And you know what? Let's face it. Who really could it have been? I mean, the people I threw around were like Hush, which was like out of left field, honestly. That was like grasping at straws, thinking, well, he hasn't shown up yet. He shows up later. But, you know, it's like, oh, well, he hasn't shown up yet. Maybe it'll be him. And a friend who already knew who it was because he wasn't going to play the game, so he just looked at what it was like, maybe. And it's like, God damn it. Prometheus was someone else that I threw out there, uh, which again was grasping at straws, but I honestly think they would have been fucking amazing. Fucking Prometheus? I have no, like, I'll put it, like, I'll clarify something. I have little to no knowledge of who Prometheus really is as a character, but reading up even the slightest bit, because they say that it was someone that was in the asylum, or at least they say that it's probably someone who was in Arkham Asylum. Uh, and then it turns out, you know, it is who it is. But I was thinking, wait a minute, Prometheus, he's supposed to be like an evil Batman or something. Maybe it's him. Nope. But honestly, it's like that would have been really cool. Uh, let's see. And I guess before I really get into plot stuff aside from that, the Harley story. Wish it was longer. I finished it in like a half hour. And that was really only because I died a few times. Because, like, one time was, I think, the game playing up, or like maybe I missed the command, so it didn't allow it to happen, so it just let me die. I don't know. Uh, and then you got. It's like generally at the same time, it was still kind of fun for the short duration it was, because at least it wasn't just a challenge map like the fucking Deathstroke shit. Because that's all the Deathstroke stuff was. It was just fucking challenge maps. At least with Harley, we got to walk around a location. I did not get any version that came with the Jason Todd stuff, so the Red Hood stuff, which I guess has to be based after the fact because, he's got the Red Hood look by then. Apparently he kills Black Mask in that, which kind of pisses me off because Black Mask has got shafted this entire series. Do I give too much of a shit about Black Mask? Not really, but ever since they fucked him over in Origins, I've gone back and gone, wow, this guy's got a raw deal. Like, a really raw deal. And, like, to the point that it's almost as if the people behind the Arkham games really fucking hate Black Mask. Including the people that made Origins, because Origins isn't even made by Rocksteady. So, that, just his treatment overall pisses me off. But anyway, the main story. If you don't know it, you know it by now. Let's face it. If you're watching this, you've played the fucking game. You know what happens. Scarecrow threatens to basically does a terrorist threat, and so they evacuate the city, which is like, okay, that's a good plot device. I'd honestly thought that something they were going to do was just section off a bit of the city because of some sort of thing. And guess what? I wasn't wrong. I mean, I wasn't entirely wrong. Something happens, so they evacuate rather than blocking off an area of the city. So, I was going in the right direction. I have that at least. And now you get to use the fucking Batmobile. First thing you basically do is kind of save Poison Ivy, but not really. Turns out that Scarecrow basically kidnapped her because she didn't want to be in on the plan to take out Batman, because it's like, honestly, why the fuck would Ivy need to be in on that? If she wanted to kill Batman, she could have killed him by now. Let's face it. Like, she might as well have said as such. What I found hilarious, though, is when you get her back to the GCPD building and you help her out of the car, the first words out of her mouth are, "Where did you learn to drive?" And I have stream footage proving how shit I was at first with the Batmobile. Because it takes a while to get used to. So the fact that I'd been driving really shit actually made that dialogue funnier than it already was. Also, like, pretty much from then on, you're just going around trying to stop Scarecrow. The side missions I'll cover later. The other main sort of story piece where it peters off from the Scarecrow stuff for a bit is apparently there's leftovers from Arkham City, basically, where 3 people actually were affected by Joker's blood, and turns out Batman has been as well, because during the Ace Chemicals bit where you first run into Scarecrow and then he just injects you with fear toxin and runs off, the Joker shows up and you think, oh, god damn it, did they bring him back to life? Nope. Fear toxin, or at least fear toxin, makes him appear to Batman. But otherwise, he is generally infected with Joker's blood still. So apparently the antidote from the last game wouldn't have worked anyway. Or, like, it was only a temporary solution. to hold it off a bit, and then the problem comes back. Sort of like forget the term, but you know, when they try to get rid of a tumor and then the tumor comes back, stuff like that, or like people with cancer and stuff. I don't think the right term is relapse. That's what I want to say, but I don't think that's the right term. But anyway, there's like a little subplot with that where it turns out the old dude has actually been manipulating this entire situation, basically. Shoots all the other people that were infected, who are all original characters for this game, which is another argument against them not making Arkham Knight an original character. And you could argue it's not even an original concept, because it is basically just the Red Hood, but with an army behind him. So he's the Red Hood meets Deathstroke, and Deathstroke takes over after he's defeated and runs off anyway. So, well, defeated. Basically after he decides to run off. In a way, I probably shouldn't be doing this when I'm so tired, but I want to get this fucking done, okay? So I'm getting it done. Further in the plot, there's one of the few shocking moments that actually works, which I'll admit, most of the shocks work. The only shock that doesn't is, of course, Arkham Knight being Jason. They make it look like Barbara Gordon shoots herself after being infected with fear toxin. And it turns out the entire thing was a ruse. And she never shot herself. It was just Batman was being affected by Joker toxin. Oh, sorry, not Joker toxin. Bleh. Fear toxin. And made to think that happened. Because it probably never even happened. She was probably never even there. He was just being affected by fear toxin. Or she was there, but nothing really happened, or she went to shoot herself, but it was like a blank, and she just passed out. Because, like, Joker kind of moves in the way when she does that, which I thought was just a censorship thing, but now that it turns out later that she's actually alive, it's like, okay, that might be why they did that. Much later on, then you get to the bit where you find out, well, I say much later on, I did side stuff, so it took me quite a while to get through the actual main story. But going by how it works, you can basically do all the main stuff and then the side stuff later, and it wouldn't really matter. Granted, you're better off doing the side stuff, honestly. It makes the game go longer. You get to the Arkham Knight's headquarters, which, funnily enough, one encounter with him that you have is in a Queen Industries building. So there's a Green Arrow reference. And there's actually a LexCorp building, which I think at one point they also have Arkham Knight's goons are on. So that's another one. Reference to something other than Batman, for once. Which a lot of people have been going, oh, they're going to set up a Justice League game, or they're going to do Green Arrow and Superman games or something now. Ooh. And as much as it seems like, yeah, it probably is why, I'm not going to hold my breath, because you never know. I mean, they said they're done with Batman. They didn't say they're done with DC in general. So it could happen. And if it does, that'd be cool, but, you know, And by the way, for the record, if it does, I bet that I would, or at least I would prefer Green Arrow first, because a lot of what they've done with Batman, they can rework quite easily to work for Green Arrow, whereas Superman, you'd have to completely start from scratch. Because, you know, the flying mechanic and the fact that, like, most of his, like, you know, if you were having fistfights with thugs, there'd just be one punch, they're out. One punch, they're out. Sort of stuff. So that would, a Superman game would pretty much have to be nothing but boss battles, as far as I'm concerned. Like, no dealing with petty thugs, just going around kicking the shit out of bosses. So, actual villains. You only fight villains. Yeah, you kind of fight or get away from Arkham Knight. By this point, because Commissioner Gordon knows, he's gone after Scarecrow himself. Tim Drake, you've locked up in a holding cell, because yeah, that'll end well. And it's only after that the Batman tells him that Oracle is dead. And of course, he understandably has a breakdown and, like, wants Batman to let him out. And then later, when you, oh, pardon me, when he comes back after you find out that she's alive, you tell her that, and he has another kind of breakdown, but it's like an oh thank God kind of breakdown, that he thought she was dead and she's not. So it's like, oh, hallelujah, kind of thing. What else happened? Well, generally, there's another twist, which is really cool. Is the fact that Barbara's actually alive. Thank God. I mean, like, it would have been a pretty emotionally charged and powerful way to do something. Because I actually put the controller down when it looked like Barbara had shot herself. I was that shocked. I had to put the controller down, just put my hands over my face, and I was like, holy shit. They killed Oracle. And they didn't. And, like, I'm glad that they didn't, but at the same time, if they hadn't, it would have been a pretty solid way of saying, yep, this is done. Because as soon as that happened, it was like, wow, it's fair game. Anyone could die. And then only one person does. Unless you count Black Mask. But yeah, they managed to, oh, pardon me. Basically, Gordon has to shoot Batman, and hello to whoever said that. I can't see your name, but hello to you. They, oh God, no, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, Jim Gordon actually, he does shoot Batman, and, like, Batman falls off the building, and it's like, wow, okay. But I guess at the same time, he shot it in a place where, okay, now I can see your name, Carlos. Hello, Carlos. He shoots him in a place where he knows it's not going to affect him. So, and Scarecrow pulls the whole, oh, you thought I was actually going to be a man of my word. Haha, fuck you, and pushes Babs off the side of the building. Luckily, Batman literally swoops in and saves her. And that whole sequence plays out really well. because it's twist upon twist, but they're twists that actually make sense and work. And then, later on, you actually get. By this point, you've already fought and basically told him to fuck off. Fought Jason Todd, and got him to basically fuck off. And he's left the Arkham Knight visor behind, so now he's got underneath is basically the Red Hood helmet. Okay, someone asked me what her name, like whose name? You're gonna have to clarify. God damn it, now I've lost my train of thought again. Anyway, you have to fight your way out of there using the Batmobile after you've saved Barbara. And then eventually, generally, you get an ultimatum from Scarecrow, because it turns out he's gone back and kidnapped Tim Drake, which, gee, why am I surprised that that didn't happen? I was like, well, why am I not surprised that that happened? Like, he puts him in a holding cell and just leaves him there. Gee, that's going to end well. Then you get, god damn. And then eventually, like, basically, Barbara gives you a stern talking to, and Bruce basically decides, okay, fuck it, I'm going to hand myself in. And, oh wait, no, sorry, I'm skipping an entire bit here. Before you properly defeat Arkham Knight, he goes rogue from Scarecrow at one point, because he wants Batman dead. And before that, Scarecrow actually sets off that bomb that he's trying to set off. And he's got Poison Ivy to try and help him, but the thing is set off basically not that much longer after she finally agrees to help him. So you've got to go around revealing these giant plants that can help absorb the fear toxin to get it out of the air. So, rather than it being that you actually have to stop that event from happening, it happens and you have to get rid of it. So I thought that was really cool, because I thought, oh, well, clearly he's not going to get a chance to set that bomb off. But it goes off, and the fear toxin spreads fucking everywhere, to the point that you have to stay above a certain height or you would fall into it and die. I mean, you have to go into it at one point, but you pretty much almost immediately get into the Batmobile. But that's after like stealing something that can make it work. Because something else I forgot to fucking mention, of course, because I'm skipping over stuff, is that you go into Simon Stagg's airships. Because Scarecrow is there at one point, and he notices that you're starting to become a bit more brutal, and it's surprising the hell out of him. And he gets away with that bomb thing, does it, sets it off, blah. And then right at the very end, Bruce gives himself up to Scarecrow, and Scarecrow actually unmasks him to the public. And I'm thinking, this is the most effective I've ever heard a villain in any comic book ever being. Like, he's pretty much won. Even if he loses now, he's still won. Like, yeah, like even if he stopped, he still technically won. Because A, he set that bomb off. So a lot of people died because of that. Because there was still thugs and people on his own side still there that would have got affected by it. And then he reveals Batman's identity as Bruce Wayne to the public. So that's actually pretty fucking amazing. That Scarecrow was allowed to look that competent. And like, this is what this guy is capable of if there's no fucking Joker to get in the way and wreck everything. And eventually, like, yeah, there's a sort of fear toxin sequence where the Joker takes over Bruce's body and has hallucinations of mowing down with his own Joker-fied fucking Batmobile, just mowing down all these fucking thugs. And then one by one killing Penguin, then the Riddler, then Two-Face, just shooting them. Specifically, the interesting thing is that Riddler grabs a woman to hide behind. And you basically just shoot through her and get him. You don't like shoot. It's Joker, so you just shoot her and it'll affect him as well because you've got a pretty fucking huge gun. And then there's like a bit where Bruce is trying to regain and eventually does regain control of his sanity. What little of it was left anyway, if you argue all that point. Generally, he regains control of his consciousness. And that's a big plot hole in a way, because as someone pointed out to me, well, your blood cells get replaced every couple of months or so. And it's like, so it's like, wait a minute, shouldn't the Joker's blood, if it's been in him this long, have just been destroyed by his own body's defense mechanisms? And to me, I think the thing I found iffy about that was, well, wait, what actually happened? He's still got the Joker's blood in him, but he just fought it off mentally? Like, so now he's got the Joker locked away in like some bit of his subconscious mind now or something? Like, I don't get how that fucking works, but okay. It's an interesting thing to play through, but at the same time, it still leaves you going like, well, wait a minute. So in that sense, it's a bit dodge, but well. It's overall, it's still pretty fun to play through. And then he injects Batman with fear toxin again, and Bruce is just like, no, I'm not afraid anymore. So essentially, Joker's blood somehow helped make Bruce immune to the fear toxin. Or like he's just generally been pumped with it so much that maybe it eradicated Joker's blood or something. And basically he stabs, or makes Scarecrow stab himself with his own fear toxin, and he gets a huge dose of it, because this isn't just ordinary fear toxin. This is some hardcore shit that he's made. And he just wigs the fuck out, and and is pretty much like that, and in a sort of weird catatonic state for the rest of the playthrough after that, because, you know, you take him to the GCBD, he gets locked up, but that's not the end of the story. You still have to, if you want 100% completion, you have to lock away every single side mission villain. Every single one. Which I like, because that actually makes it like, okay, you want the actual ending, you have to lock up all of these motherfuckers. And even if you don't lock up all of them, you still have to lock up most of them. I think there's like 9. You have to at least lock up 8. So when I locked up Deathstroke, who was my second last one, because the last one I did was Riddler, and I can pretty much guarantee that the last one anyone does will most likely be Riddler, because motherfucker, you have to get every single Riddler trophy, every riddle, every destroyed stuff. You have to disarm bombs that he implanted in thugs' heads by hitting them with electrified batarangs. Remote control ones to specify that there isn't like an actual electrified batarang option in the game. But yeah, as far as the main story goes, you know, I was satisfied. There was some stuff that was a bit meh, but the stuff, when it's good, it's fucking amazing. When it's bad, it's not horrible, it's just eh. So really, for me, the good stuff made up for it. Just to quickly go over the references, yeah, there was Superman ones. Luthor leaves a message, which I put on this channel. There was, God, what else happened? Zaz is kind of referenced twice, but he's never actually there. Well, okay. He's there in one thing when you're looking through security footage, and Batman never notices for some reason. That I found a bit odd. It's like, oh hey, there's Zaz. I wonder what he's going to be up to later. And then we find out, because there's a riddle that you have to solve that is Zaz related, and he's basically propped up a bunch of guys like they're fishing, which is okay. And the little story thing that you unlock that goes with it basically says that he was only going to kill a few of Penguin's men. But then when he started doing the telemarks, he realized, yeah, it's going to be a long night. So Zaz is technically still free somewhere. And Mad Hatter is probably still loose somewhere. But, you know, these specific ones were the main threats. And I got rid of them. Side mission wise, I really liked the Penguin one. Mostly for the fact that it allowed you to play as fight alongside Batman as Nightwing for some of it. In some of the main story, you actually get to play as Tim Drake, so that was cool. Or generally you can switch to Tim Drake. I kind of wish that had been incorporated into the main story more, and actually being able to go around within the main story as different Bat family members would have been nice, but oh well. Especially because it would have been a way to introduce Stephanie Brown as Batgirl, just so you had a Batgirl to play as. But that's a nitpick. The Professor Pig one was one that really caught me off guard, and I was really interested. And then when I actually get to Professor Pig, I'm like, okay, this is one creepy motherfucker. Like, a friend of mine has said that there are very few villains and very few things that legitimately creep him out. But Professor Pig is one of them, or just generally like characters he doesn't like for the reason that they actually creep him out. Oh, that or he does, but it's like it's one of the characters that legit creeps him out. Whereas some, like, yeah, they're creepy, but they don't actually, like, creep him out at all. And I, understandably so, because holy shit, this dude is fucking creepy. Even more so when you realize that he has cut off bits of his face, or at least made cuts in his face, stretched his skin, and then stapled, I think, stapled or stitched his stretched face back on there. So it looks really fucking disgusting, and it's like, oh my god. And the fucking Dollatrons. Jesus Christ. I've seen the comic book versions. I honestly think that the versions from Arkham City are more terrifying. I mean, yeah, the ones in the comics actually look like dolls, and that's kind of horrific. But I don't know, something about the white blank face mask sort of look with like sometimes blood dripping out the eye sockets is like, ugh, Jesus. And when you get back to the fucking GCPD, some of them have been locked up, and some of them are just sort of, and they're all just standing there. All the other prisoners you lock up are like trying to get out, like rattling the cages and cage doors and shit, and fucking taunting you and shit. But these fucking people are just standing there, some of them twitching and stuff like that, and it's really unsettling. And really, Professor Pig is another one of those villains that you could kind of believe actually existing. I mean, I doubt Dollatrons would actually really work as a real life concept, but the way his craziness works, for lack of a better, more technical term, or psychopathy, psychopathy, however you'd say that, how that works, it seems very realistic. Because in a way, it's kind of like Zaz, where Zaz kills people and thinks he's doing them a favor. Professor Pig thinks mutilating these people's bodies is doing them a favor and making them perfect. And when you arrest him, he's like, oh no, please don't. My work needs to continue. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, this isn't a guy that you can redeem. This is a guy that is batshit fucking insane. And even Batman's like, yeah, I'm going to try and make sure that you never get out of here. um, and even some of the other characters are kind of creeped out by him. Excuse me, that you lock up. Deacon Blackfire. That one kind of comes out of nowhere. Um, well, not really out of nowhere. They mention him in Jack Ryder's room, which really at first I didn't think it went anywhere, but then a friend basically said, oh yeah, it goes somewhere. So then I waited for that to happen, and it did. And it's like, this version of Deacon Blackfire, and I can honestly tell you I'd never heard of him before, seemed a lot like a very old Bray Wyatt. And WWE fans would know what I mean, because hell, he even had the southern accent. And basically dresses up like and it basically is or dresses like a homeless person, and could possibly be immortal because apparently there's shit about him from like fucking ages and ages ago. Maybe literally, for all we know, because like apparently there's something from him back in the 20s, and he's already old as fuck now, and he was probably old as fuck back then. So it's like, no, that couldn't be possible. And they try to sacrifice Jack Ryder for whatever reason, and oh, excuse me, and you save Jack Ryder, which I thought that he was gonna get stabbed before you could save him, and he'd turn into the creeper instead of just dying. Which that's something that kind of pisses me off. Jack Ryder is a voice in Arkham Asylum. He actually shows up in Arkham City as like a human, as an actual character that's there. Arkham Knight, still there as a character, has his own subplot, does not turn into the creeper once. What the fuck, Rocksteady? You had 3 games to do this, and you didn't do it once. Not even for like a minute. I don't think there's even really I think that's just it. The creeper is a thing in this universe because I'm pretty sure Vicky Vale or Quincy Sharp refers to the creeper in something in Arkham City. So he does exist, but they just never have him show up, and it doesn't make any sense to me. So, like they have Deacon Blackfire, and for someone like me who isn't really into comics at all, it makes no sense that you'd have someone as obscure as Deacon Blackfire, and even someone who's relatively unknown, considering he hasn't been used all that much, like Professor Pig, and then turn around and not use the creeper. Like, just have him in a cutscene or something, and I would have been like, okay, fine, they did it. And it might just come off as a nitpick, but come on, guys. They had Jack Ryder in there. You got to do the creeper. Let's see, what were the other ones? There's the Firefly one, and Jesus Christ. That dude is fucking insane. That's all I can really say. Like, it is kind of fun though, because you've got to chase him around in the Batmobile and then just lunge out at the last, like when you catch up to him, and just tackle him in midair. It's pretty cool. Then you got. I really wish I had a thing open. Shit. Well, generally there's the Riddler thing, which I like that they make it so you have to collect all of them and then fight Riddler. So it's not just a case of, oh no, you got all the riddles. Well, you've beaten me. Like it was in the other one. Like it was in Arkham Asylum, I mean. In Arkham City, they're kind of just there as like collectibles, but there's no real goal outside of getting a trophy / achievement to actually get all of them. But in this one, the reward of getting all 243 of those motherfuckers is that you get to face the Riddler in a mech. But, well, duh. How else is he supposed to actually... Granted, it's more so you fight robots, and then when you've taken out all the robots, you attack him. And it's a quick time event. But at the same time, at least there's some closure to the whole Riddler arc. And even, it's like they knew that Riddler was going to be the last one you face, because pretty much after that, after you beat Scarecrow, he'll be like, haha, now a Scarecrow out of the way, and the Joker's already dead. Now you know who your true enemy is, and it's me. Or like, you've still got me to deal with, you little shit. And Catwoman helps you in that as well, which was cool. I almost thought I was going to have to do it as only Batman, but then at some point Catwoman shows up, and it's like, oh, thank God. That'll make this much more interesting. Really sorry about that. I just got lockjaw for a second there. Ow. I was yawning. That's why I initially went quiet, and then I almost got lockjaw. Ow. Live. God. What are the other fucking things? Hey, you've got to save firefighters, and then it turns out that the fire chief had actually been like working with Firefly and just letting him set fires because they were all going to be made redundant for as a way of getting around a obvious but unintended pun. They were going to be let go by the city because apparently, as even one of the firefighters said, well, apparently the city doesn't need firefighters. um, and like sort of Firefly's whole shtick is ironically setting uh, firefighter depots on fire, and you got to put the fire out, and then he bursts out of the building, and you got to chase him. Then there's the one. There's like you defuse bombs and take out all these other things relating to the militia forces. And it turns out that Deathstroke ends up to be the villain that you fight from that, because after Arkham Knight defects from Scarecrow, Deathstroke was essentially waiting in the wings to take over. As sort of Scarecrow's second in command. Even though by the time I actually got to where Deathstroke shows up, which was a complete shock to me, because the only game he's been in the Arkham series is outside of the Rocksteady trilogy. So that was really cool, even though his boss fight, I've seen a lot of people bitch that his boss fight was basically the same as one of Arkham Knight's fights. Boss fights, but at the same time, it didn't really bother me too much because at this point, Batman's not really 100%. So would he really be able to take on Deathstroke in an actual like fair fight? I excuse me, I highly doubt it. In any way, it's challenging. So like some people say, "Oh, they're fucking easy." Not really. Like maybe that's just me. Well, I guess it's not so much that they're extremely hard; they're just fucking annoying. Like they're tedious, I guess, is the people's problem with that. But you know, I don't really mind either of those boss battles. I think I got through the Deathstroke one in one go, but that's only because I realized what I needed to do, and that was just veer away from his missiles and shoot him, and just keep going and going and going and going, and not stop and not run away. Unlike the Arkham Knight one, where I'm pretty sure you have to run away. This was just fucking shoot it. Which I learned from watching a fucking playthrough of it, and I was like, okay, I guess that's what I've got to do then. Let's see, what other side stories were there? God, I'm trying to remember. I honestly think that's it though, which seems weird because I am pretty sure that the way I did that, I left someone out. Because from the top of my head, I'm pretty sure I've got all of them. It's Riddler, Oh wait, no, that's why. I covered like 3 in one go. Because all of the militia related ones, and there's like 3 of those, count as Deathstroke. Man-Bat was who I forgot, and that was effective. I did not see Man-Bat coming at all. So when you're just like, you do some story-related thing, and then the Riddler taunts you, and or at least maybe you can unlock it earlier than that, but I got it after that certain point. Grappled up to a certain building, and just as I'm about to pull myself up, fucking Man-Bat comes out of nowhere, scares the shit out of me. Like, holy crap. That's a... Considering there's no sort of tension build or anything, and it just sort of happens, you could say it's a jump scare, but it's an effective one. Or at least it's, you know, it fucking works, because I was like, oh shit. Like, I almost had a fucking heart attack. And then it just sets in, oh my god, Man-Bat! Wow! Holy shit, Man-Bat in a fucking Arkham game. Um, and then like his story takes a while to do, but I think that's pretty much because it holds it off until you've completed certain story stuff. So you'll do like one section, and then you'll have to get further along. And if you got far enough along, you can just keep going. But I think in some cases you have to keep going in the story for it to open up for that story again. You finally catch him, and after learning who he is and what happened, because the interesting thing is this is supposed to be his origin, and basically Man-Bat gets well, yeah, generally you take him out and incapacitate him, turn him back to normal, and put him in a holding cell that you previously had Ivy in the GCPD. Luckily, they give him pants, though, because when he initially turns back to human, of course, because he turned into a giant fucking bat, he didn't have any clothes on. So instead of just sitting there naked, they do appear to give him pants. Even if it's not initially, they do actually let him keep his dignity, or at least part of his dignity, by giving him a set of pants. So that's, thank God. Yeah, villain-wise, I think that's about it. All of the villain subplots and that I honestly really like. If anything, the Deathstroke one, just for the fact that Deathstroke shows up at all. The Riddler one works out really well. The Professor Pig one was a surprise. In that, I guess initially I probably thought it was Zaz or Hush or something for some reason. Speaking of, yeah, there is a Hush one. But because because he looks like you, looks like Bruce Wayne, because that's how his Arkham City subplot went. It's like, well, shit, we can't really give him up to the authorities, can we? Ooh. So they just sort of lock him up within Wayne Tower. Is it Wayne Tower or is it the other one? Because there's 2 Wayne buildings. There's like Wayne Tech and Wayne Tower. Ugh, one of those 2 anyway. And his is like, his isn't really a quick time event, but it's like you distract him by revealing to him that you are Bruce Wayne, because that's what he wants. He wants Bruce Wayne to show up. So he's like, okay, takes the Batman mask off, and Hush is completely fucking surprised. And then you manage to dodge one of his bullets, or you have to like knock the gun out of his hand at the right time, or something like that. Then fucking Lucius Fox smashes a glass or something like that over his head, and then Batman slams him through the table. It's a pretty fun moment. Like, I kind of wish after the build up he got in Arkham City, I really wish that Hush had had a longer subplot rather than it just being, oh, we seem to have lost communications with Lucius Fox. I wonder what's going on there. Batman's like, oh, I'll investigate it. And then that's what it turns out to be. And it's like, really, guys? That's it? Like, I was satisfied with it, but at the same time, it does kind of feel like it was not enough. I guess the funny thing is Hush is fucked now, considering everyone knows Bruce Wayne is Batman, or at least was Batman. You don't, like, looking like Bruce Wayne is not going to come in handy for him. Which reminds me, I never actually talked about the Nightfall ending, so the 100% ending. Oh yeah, like specifically the 100% ending, because that's what I got. It's basically exactly what you'd think it would be. Batman hangs up the cowl. And then in what is going to be and has been heavily debated, Wayne Manor blows up. And a lot of people think it's either, well, it could just been, someone realizing that finding out that it's him, and since he's still out, sneaks in, plants bombs, and then just blows them up when they go inside, which I'd argue, with all the press hanging around his house, that would have been very hard to do. Unless the League of Assassins did it. I don't know. Batman blowing it up himself to fake his own death, or actually killing himself, which, no. It couldn't have been him doing that, as far as I'm concerned, because would Alfred have still been in the building, do you think? Because if I was Alfred, and going by what Alfred says, Alfred would not have been fine with being blown up. So, and let's face it, Bruce might kill himself to save everyone else, but I doubt that he would make Alfred take the bullet as well. So there's that. And then there's a bit where they say, basically say that Tim and Barbara are getting married, which is nice. A lot of people would probably be bitching because it's like, oh no, it's always fucking Dick Grayson and Barbara. What the fuck are you doing? And really, I don't give a shit. So, like, to me, it works. I mean, hell, they are the smartest two of the Bat family, so why the fuck not? Or maybe that's why people would be against it, because it's just like, it seems too right. Sort of like Wonder Woman and Superman. I've seen a lot of people bitch about that because it's too obvious. And then there's like a thing where it looks like history is going to repeat itself, and a rich couple and their kid are going to get mugged and killed in an alley. And then suddenly a Batman-ish figure shows up on a rooftop, and the thugs are initially just like, oh, fuck off you. Batman's dead. We know that. And then the figure starts to rise up somehow. and then extends its, well, I guess what would look you'd think would be a cape, but it's actually giant fucking wings that take out a bunch of the buildings around it somehow. And then it swoops down to get the thugs, I think. And that's just where it ends. And it's confusing as hell. The theories I've seen are people saying like, "Oh, it's Batman. It's Bruce, but he faked his death, and now he's trying to make Batman a myth again by like maybe using Scarecrow's fear toxin or something like that." And then there's other theories where it's Azrael, which is another subplot I forgot to mention. Or it's Dick Grayson or Tim Drake or whoever. Just generally not Bruce, but as far as I'm concerned, it's Bruce. So I guess the thing I'll end on is the Azrael subplot, which is actually really cool because you get to play as Azrael. And he's basically being tested by Batman because he shows up and says, "Well, clearly you're going to be dead by the end of the night, so you need to hand the cowl over to someone. I have been studying you for months, and if it means that much, I will swear to uphold your moral high horse thingy of no killing just to be allowed the chance to be Batman." And Bruce basically considers it and says, "Okay, you'll have to pass a bunch of tests." So you basically fight as Azrael using all the shit you use as Batman. So it's basically a reskinned Batman. But, and like, I've heard seen people bitch about that, and a friend of mine has definitely bitched about that. But honestly, I don't give a fuck. You get to play as Azrael, goddammit. Yeah, it's not with his sword, but who gives a fuck? You get to play with him. Have fun. I did. Even though I realized, oh, I'm basically just doing the same shit I'd be doing as Batman, I was caught up in the fucking just the fun of the moment, whereas like, holy shit, I'm playing as Azrael. And essentially after all the tests are done, you take control of Azrael again, and you either have to, because it turns out the Order of Saint Dumas have put something implanted something into Michael Lane's brain, or so Azrael's, modified memories and just generally something to brainwash him. And like the thing is to kill Bruce and take his place as Gotham's true savior. Because Gotham needs divine retribution or something. So what? Apparently, this can go one of two ways. And I thought this would be like the Catwoman bit in Arkham City where you can just choose to leave and it goes to a what if ending where it turns out the entirety of the rest of the events that happen in Arkham City only happen because Catwoman chooses to stay behind and save Batman. Which is actually pretty interesting when you think about it. And I thought that would be a similar thing here, like you would actually kill Bruce and then it would just kind of do a fake ending from there. And then you'd go back and have to make the opposite decision. But it turns out that if you do not just simply defy the orders of Azrael's masters and attempt to kill Batman, and you do attempt to kill Batman, he disarms you and arrests Azrael. and takes him to the GCPD lockup. If you don't obey their orders, you break the sword. Because I think you have to. You don't just leave. You grab the sword, you go over to Batman, and you choose the break the sword option. And Batman turns around, and you just, despite being a very powerful looking sword, all he does is put it between his two wrist blade things and just snaps it like that. And Batman sort of commends him for it. It's like, well, there you go. Now you're in charge of your own destiny. And the dude, and basically Azrael is pissed that he was being manipulated because Batman essentially tells him as such, I'm pretty sure. And says he's going to go deal with them. And that's kind of the last you hear of him, unless you choose the other option, in which case you'll probably be able to talk to him in the friggin' GCPD. Which is another reason I think that it would not be him who's Batman at the end. For the simple fact, his story can go one of two ways, which is not the case for literally every other villain. Every other villain you have to lock up. So there's no real choice there. Two-Faces, by the way, which I also didn't bring up, is basically just bank heists, and I did that really quick. Because there's only like 3, and I actually even knocked out Two-Face really quick. So, despite the fact that those were kind of fun because they were Predator challenges, still a bit iffy. Or I guess it just felt like it went too quick, but maybe that was the point. But yeah, overall, the game was worth it as far as I'm concerned. Will the DLC be worth it? I don't know. I really hope the DLC is worth the price so I can actually get it, because I'm not getting it until I have goddamn proof that it is worth my money. But I've already bitched about that in another video, so I'm going to end it here. I'm Thomas Fyrehart, and I will see you next time.